back. Scientifically, we now know that what God did is possible. God can rearrange the atoms in our bodies in such a way that we become spirit that is able to go through matter, and He can rearrange us back again into the natural. Soon the Gestapo found where Thea was staying, so the underground smuggled her into a railroad car. She was rolled up in a rug and placed up in the baggage compartment in the same car with her parents. Her parents had been rescued, probably paid for by some of the believers in another country and redeemed, because they used to do that in the war. They would give them money for political prisoners. So they had been rescued and were disguised as peasants to make their escape to a boat on the English Channel that was bound for America. And they had their little girl wrapped in this rug in the baggage compartment above where they were sitting. The German police were watching for the three of them. When they came through their car, her father spoke Italian and acted drunk, so they didn't even question him. One determined soldier thrust his bayonet into the baggage compartment. Thea said she felt the cold steel against her arm, but she suffered no injury. Their happy reunion on the Dutch boat Statendam didn't last long. The captain called everyone up to the top deck and said, "We are surrounded by 6 U-boats, and only a miracle can save us. I ask all of you to pray." They shut off the engine so as not to be heard. Soon a heavy fog came down and enveloped the whole boat. They sat in that fog for 2 days and 2 nights. On the 3rd morning it lifted, and they saw land. The captain was amazed to find that they were at Newfoundland, Canada. The whole ship had been literally translated or moved from England to Canada in 2.5 days without the engines running. This incident was written up in an Amsterdam paper by the title of "The Miracle Ship." Besides its precious cargo of people, it also carried gold and treasures that the Dutch were trying to save before they would be invaded. The Lord later told Thea, "I did this for you as a sign unto my people. They are also going to experience translation. They are also going to be butterflies." Doesn't this make you excited? It does for me. Now we're going to talk about something that the Lord spoke to Jacob Boehm, who was a humble shoemaker who lived in Europe in the 1500s. He so truly loved the Lord that he pressed through death to the self-life until he came into a very intimate place in God. In that place, he asked the Lord a question, one that we probably would like to ask. "Lord, why have you made man?" He had the same thought as David had when he said, "What is man that thou art mindful of him, and the son of man that thou visitest him?" He must have felt like we do so often. We've messed things up so much. Why do you bother with us any more? The Lord's answer has meant so much to me. It is written upon my heart in indelible ink. It was, "I have made him to be a visible expression of myself." I believe this is the main reason why the Lord is saying, "I am going to bring my first fruits company into a resurrected body. I am going to change their bodies because I want them to be my visible expression upon this earth. I want to indwell my children in a way that they can be both physical and spiritual." And when I first heard this report, I was so thrilled that for days, I kept hearing this phrase ringing in my heart, to be a visible expression of himself. Isn't that thrilling? Oh, my, my. Now, there's something I want to go into about defining resurrection, because there's been quite a lot of mix-up and false theories about it. It seems that the meaning of resurrection has been redefined in our day. It no longer means what it meant to the early Christians. Some believe that resurrection is when you receive the life of God at salvation, for your spirit is quickened and made alive. Others believe that going to heaven when you die is your resurrection. But you don't take your body. If resurrection is anything, it has to do with the body. We have a pattern to follow. When Jesus rose from the tomb, he brought his body with him. He had a live body, a body that was of the earth, but also of the heavenlies. Some say the first resurrection is spiritual and the second resurrection is physical. Consider this. If the dead are asleep in the earth, they need resurrection. If the dead are with the Lord in a spiritual state, we should not undermine the doctrine of the resurrection by saying that they have now attained their final blessed state. This would make resurrection a regression rather than a blessing. God's purpose has always been to manifest himself in the physical creation. His plan is to restore all things, not destroy all things. Jesus' resurrection was both physical and spiritual. He could be seen, he could eat, he could be touched. Yet, he could be made invisible and go through the wall. His spiritual part was from his Father, and his physical part was from his earthly mother. He was given authority in both realms, heaven and earth. This is the kind of resurrection I'm talking about. What caused this confusion of beliefs about the resurrection? I'll tell you. When the church was scattered after Pentecost, and a number of believers settled in Greece, they began to embrace the pagan Greek view rather than the Hebrew view. The pagan Greek view spiritualized the resurrection. The gospel view states plainly that there was and shall be a bodily resurrection. The Greeks also taught that matter, our bodies, was inherently evil. The Hebrew view was that creation was very good, for God pronounced it so after he had made man. Before he made the physical universe, God was all in all on the spiritual plane. The Omnipotent One decided to create a physical universe to manifest his power and nature on a physical level. We call that the creation. In creation, physical matter was not opposed to spirit. It was meant to manifest the spirit on an additional level. God's spiritual laws that he had in the heavenlies adapted his to man's plan of existence. Man was made a moral creature. The principles of the kingdom were written within him in his DNA. Jacob Boehme writes, God stirred himself to produce creation. He was desirous of having children of his own kind. Creation was an act of the free will of God, unfolded his eternal nature, and through his active love or desire, he caused that which heretofore had been in him merely as spirit, as an image contained in a piece of wood before the artist has cut it out, he caused that to become substantial, corporeal flesh. If you follow the principle of the kingdom, sharing love, mercy, honesty, loving kindness, grace, righteousness, and truth, all the attributes of God's nature, the things that will happen to you are those things. It is the principle of sowing and reaping. If you sow seeds of wickedness, hatred, and rebellion, what can you expect to reap but the same in return? We hear on every hand of the terrible wrath that God has for America and the awful judgments he's going to pour out upon her because of his great wrath. I feel that each country is reaping what they have sown, rather than that God is really mad at them. Rather, I see it as harvest time, a time of reaping what has been sown. When we sow righteousness and goodness, surely they will return unto us. This is most clearly seen in the area of money, for we're all familiar with that. If you are generous and give as the Lord tells you to, without expecting a return, and are willing to share hospitality, you will know that blessings return unto you manifold. These kingdom principles are written upon our hearts. I taught school for a number of years, and one year I had a very hard class. It was a grade 9 class, and the previous year they had a teacher who didn't really like children, and she treated them quite harshly. By the time they came to my class, they hated school and they hated teachers. That meant a hard year for me, as I had to love them back into cooperating with me. I did succeed in winning their confidence, and miraculously they all passed their grade. As for me, I was worn out and needed a change, so I left teaching and bought a small little confectionery store. My brother and I pooled our resources to buy this store, but we barely made it. On opening day he filled the till from his little girl's piggy bank. When the salesmen came, they wanted me to put in a big order. I'd mention a few things I needed, and then I'd say, "Add it up." Then, if I felt I could pay for a little more, I'd put it on the order and repeat, "Add it up." They all found that unusual, because no one else ever ordered goods like that. I told them I intended to pay for that order when it came, so I was going to be careful about my purchasing. It's easier to go into debt than it is to get out of it. I conducted my business the best I knew how, to be honest and to face everything as it came. In a few years all my suppliers were wining and dining me, taking me out to dinner, buying me boxes of chocolates, and so on. One salesman told me, "You are #1 in ice cream sales in the whole of Western Canada." This was laughable, because my store was so small. It was like 2 walk-in closets put together. Sometimes the store would fill up and I'd have to let the people go out the back door. Sometimes, though, I'd start to worry.